of ice.
Thank you. I'll be very brief because I have to run and teach a class, but I feel a bit at a disadvantage here today. First of all, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I was invited at the last minute, so it's just going to be me and you. And as I look around the room and I listen to the various presentations, I suspect I'm the only history major in the room. Is that true? Are there any other history majors out there? So with that said, let me say that Massachusetts, at least Massachusetts state government, wants to go green this year, and frankly needs to go green, and that there are a variety of bills that have been filed this year. And I've been in the Senate for some years, and I was formerly chairman of the Energy Committee, and I'm struck by the amount of energy and excitement and interest in the legislature this year to do something. So I do feel that something will happen this year. The governor has filed a bill, the speaker has filed legislation, and myself and some of my colleagues in the Senate have filed legislation as well. And I think we're going to see something happen this year, and the question will be, will it be, the governor's bill, the speaker's, or the Senate's? I like to think it'll be the Senate's bill, but we don't know yet. But I suspect in the end it'll be some combination thereof. So it's really a question of how far we go, not whether we venture down this path. Having said that, let me talk about a few of the elements of the bill we filed on the Senate side, and then I'm taking off. All right. So having said that, one of the key elements in the legislation we filed on the Senate side is a principle called least cost procurement. It's being done in Rhode Island. It's just literally in the early stages now in the state of Rhode Island, and Massachusetts is now seeking to go down that same path. Currently, utility companies, distribution companies, go out and purchase power, basic service for their customers, and they're reimbursed based on the cost of that power and their fixed cost. And frankly, the incentives in the current system all lean in the direction of selling more electricity. And we need to change that paradigm. Is that the right word? We need to change that relationship. So what we're suggesting or requiring in this legislation, if it becomes law, is we set up an independent entity that would review, and it would be well-staffed and well-designed to review the contracts that utilities and require them to submit to this entity every 3 years. Essentially, a contract, a plan that would build in energy efficiency programs in lieu of additional kilowatts of energy. And this would be the best potential practices, and this requirement would play in every 3 years. And the intent here is that these utility companies would also have their reimbursement mechanisms decoupled, so that they would no longer be contingent on selling additional energy to earn additional revenue. They would be basically reimbursed for their fixed cost, and this would be tweaked somewhat, and then they would only be reimbursed for the additional kilowatts as a pass-through. So the idea is to take the incentives out and build in requirements for them to frankly, buy energy efficiency alternatives if they're cheaper than the additional cost of a kilowatt. We also add in two new systems benefits charges, at least for legislation purposes. That's with gas and with oil. And additionally, we require distribution companies to develop programs for combined power and heat, which is something that's not the case right now. We also develop a variety of other programs, home inspections at the time and point of sale, energy inspections, energy audits at the point of sale at the time of sale. Additionally, there would be legislation adding the International Energy Code to the State Building Code. We also require the Commonwealth to follow the federal government's lead and require that all state-funded buildings achieve an energy efficiency performance standard that exceeds the IECC standards by 30%. And then finally, we established the Climate Change Policy Act, requiring various state agencies to consider the effects of greenhouse gas emissions with respect to permits, licenses, and other administrative decisions. and we establish a presumption that decisions shall favor less greenhouse gas alternatives, and the identification of the greenhouse gas impacts of capital spending projects. Again, all of this is designed to make the state a more environmentally friendly, a greener entity, a greener institution. We anticipate, and again, this is seat-of-the-pants math, that if this legislation were passed, the number of the dollars saved and the dollars invested in utility energy efficiency programs would more than double from $125 million annually to some $300 million. And our expectation is that this would result in massive savings to consumers and, of course, significant environmental benefits. So I want to close there. We also are also in this legislation establishing the legal authority for municipalities to own generation facilities at the municipal level, and we set up criteria to encourage them to purchase, own, and operate renewables within municipalities. There's an enormous interest out there to do that, but there is, frankly, some legal obstacles to that, to heading in that direction. And if you factor in efforts as also to establish net metering, I think collectively we feel like this is a significant step in terms of pushing Massachusetts ahead of California. And that's our ultimate ambition. So I thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm heading off to Cape. It's still above sea level last time I looked. But if we don't do this, it's not clear that it will remain so. So thank you very much for having me.